Hello everyone. Today I'm going to discuss about the gastric and also duodenal ulcers. So these are nothing but the peptic ulcers. So in this topic, I'm going to discuss about the what are the gastric ulcers and duodenal ulcers. So these gastric ulcers and also duodenal ulcers is nothing but is a peptic ulcers. So these peptic ulcers are the source that develop in the lining of the stomach. So it's nothing but the ulcers in the stomach. So depends upon the involvement of the site. So it's divided into three types. So that is the duodenal ulcers, gastric ulcers, and esophageal ulcers. And so these are usually results of the inflammation caused by the bacteria. So which is called as is the Helicobacter pylori. So this is a bacteria because of H. pylori, normally called as H. pylori, as well as the form the erosion from the stomach acids. So because of these bacterial infections, it alters the stomach functions and also it damages the mucosa of the lining mucosa of the stomach. So it may lead to the increasing the inflammation in the stomach. It alters the HCl concentration. It may give the ulcers in the stomach. So if it ulcers occurs in the esophagus, so these ulcers are called as esophageal ulcers. So if the ulcers in the stomach, so it is called as the gastric ulcers. So, and also if it ulcer in the duodenum, so it is called as the duodenal ulcers. So these ulcers are is a fairly common health problems. So these are the commonest, most common nowadays. Many people, if you see in the 100% of the people, so at least anytime they are going to be experience these peptic ulcers, at least the 40 to 50% of the people may experience like a gastric ulcers and also duodenal ulcers in their lifetime period. So because of so many reasons are there for the gastric ulcers. So if you see here, so this gastric ulcers, this ulcer develop inside the stomach. So inside the stomach, so it's called as the gastric ulcers. Esophageal ulcers that develop inside the esophagus. So if the esophagus is going to be connecting to the stomach. So if any ulcers occurs in the esophagus, so it gives the esophageal ulcers called as esophageal ulcers. So duodenal ulcers that develop in the upper part of the small intestine. So if you see the small intestine, so the small intestine divided into the duodenum and jejunum and ileum. So in the small intestine upper part is called as the duodenum. So most of the ulcers are going to be formed in the duodenum. So 80% of the ulcers are commonly seen in the duodenum regions. So that also called as duodenal ulcers. So these peptic ulcers are more likely to be in the duodenum than the stomach. So 80% of the peptic ulcers are going to be seen in the duodenum than the gastric ulcers. As a rule, they occur alone, but they may occur in the multiple. So it's going to be occurs in the multiple. So chronic gastric ulcers tend to occur in the lesser curvature of the stomach near the pylorus. So if you see the so many types of the ulcers are there. So according to the lesions or locations is divided into the so many types of the gastric ulcers. So if you see the gastric ulcers, so these are going to be so type 1 and also type 2, type 3 and type 4. So if you see the type 1, so in this type 1 gastric ulcers are going to occur in the lesser curvature. So here is going to be the more like ulcers are going to be occurs in the lesser curvature. So it's called as type 1 gastric ulcers. So if the type 2 gastric ulcers are, so these are the combined gastric ulcers. So within the duodenal ulcers, so is going to get the is a lesser curvature one ulcers as well as duodenal ulcers also going to get. So these are called as the type 2 gastric ulcers. So occurs in the lesser curvature, that is inside the stomach curvature, and also duodenum. So this is called as the type 2. So these are going to be combined with the gastric ulcers and also with the duodenal ulcers. Type 3 ulcers are going to be, these are going called as the pre-pyloric ulcers. So this is a pyloric sphincter. So this is the just before the pyloric sphincter. So any ulcers in the pyloric regions. So this is called as the pre-pyloric ulcers. So next one is the fourth one ulcer is called as the gastric ulcers, that is the proximal stomach or cardina. So at the region of the cardina, so is going to be this is going to be at the esophageal sphincter. So if any ulcers formation in between the connection between the esophagus and also stomach region, so it is called as cardia, also called as proximal stomach. So if any ulcer occur in the proximal to the stomach, so it is a grade 4 ulcer or type 4 ulcers. So type 1 is going to be lesser curvature. Type 2 is the combination of the lesser curvature and also is the duodenal ulcers. So type 3 is going to the pre-pyloric. Type 4 will be the proximal stomach. So these are the 4 types of the gastric ulcers.